Alright, we'll be doing a garden tour today, and today is September 10, 2023, and the reason I chose today is because it is our first average frost night. Last night we hit 8 degrees Celsius. We've been hitting as low as 6 and 5 degrees Celsius in the last little while. And based on the long-range forecasts... Oh, somebody just batted at me. Do you want attention? Ow, ow! Long-range forecasts, we are not expecting to get an actual frost overnight until the end of October. So we might have an extended growing season. So let's do a tour of the garden. The herbs have done really well. That one tiny oregano is blooming profusely. The bees are loving it. The thyme, and then there's grass growing in there from the grass mulch, the spearmint, and the lemongrass. Alright, this bed has not done well at all this year. There was, where'd it go? There was a single zuccamelon developing here, and oh, look at that. Yeah, so it's dead. The little finger eggplant, not doing well. This is a drum gourd. It's bloomed but didn't do anything. More eggplant, they just never grew. But we do have some of the, just 2 Caveman's Club. But as you can see, the plants did not do well. So this location, now that we have the blocks here, is not doing well. It did a lot better when it was just loose soil. This bed is going to get a complete change. The peas have been pulled up. There's still onions in here and stuff like that. It's too wide to conveniently weed near the fence. So I'm basically going to take out that brick at the end that's an angle and move the whole thing in a few inches. And that will make this path wider. And so we got, yeah, the onions that got transplanted in here didn't really do well, partly because the cats lay on them. This is the Czechoslovakian lettuce that actually survived, and so I'm letting them go to seed. And yeah, this bed will work out a lot better once it's narrower, and I'll finally be able to shovel past this stump here without catching it. This stump is going to be turned into a seat. I keep forgetting to talk about the hascaps because, well, they're in here. If I can just move these aside. This is the Mr. Hascap, and then where is she? This is the Mrs. One variety is Borealis. I keep forgetting what the other one is, and there's another one buried under there. These yellow flowers obviously really love the spot. The Hascap do not, and I suspect a major problem is this. We keep trimming this tree back and it just gets bushier because, well, they do that. This is one of the Chinese elm that we need to get rid of because they produce so many millions of seeds. And those seeds are why this bed in particular was such a failure. I'm just amazed that these lettuces survived at all because they were completely smothered by seeds. And the tiny bok choy, I actually had a couple survive and go to seed, so I kept the seeds. The seed pods are drying inside now, but yeah, we didn't get much out of this bed, partly because of these beautiful elms. The purple asparagus has valiantly tried to recover from last year's flooding, and the strawberries are actually still producing. Being eaten by the deer has set them back, and so they're just kind of trying to make up for it, I guess. And with the asparagus, I've got this one female plant here, so I'm hoping to collect some seeds and maybe start asparagus from seed soon. The sunchokes are looking quite lovely. But, like last year, I'm not seeing any signs of flowers. But, you know, we have time. We'll see how it goes. Here we have the orange carrots, and I've not been harvesting these at all. I'm letting them grow as much as possible for a winter harvest. And what I'm considering doing is just harvesting the ones along the edges, and then leaving the ones growing in the middle, covering them and protecting them, and leaving them to store under there for the winter. The popcorn is drying up nicely, and should be interesting to see how those work out. And this cover has had the interesting effect of supporting the onions, so they're just going to keep right on growing. These are the Red of Florence, I think, and we quite enjoyed them beforehand. Oh, can you see? There's a black little kitten there. The squash growing in the compost pile is still thriving, and there's this one little tiny Ozark nest egg gourd that's actually blooming. But yeah, the squash in here is pretty amazing. So hidden under here, there's one squash, another squash, are these beans that I'm letting go to seed. I have actually picked one pod to see what they look like inside, and they are a deep, deep dark blue, almost black. In fact, I thought they were black at first. So I have no idea where those beans came from, because we've never purchased anything like that. More squash. Here we are with the crab apples. You can see there's quite a lot on some of these trees, but unfortunately they're the ones that are inedible. And the one tree that has tasty apples, as you can see by the leaves, has a fungal disease. Most of the apples that were on here got blown off by winds, so we haven't actually bothered to harvest any. But every now and then I'll grab some to eat while I'm walking around. We're gonna lose this tree, I think. I don't know how to fix it. And then these are inedible apples. And here we have our silver buffalo berry. And, oh, there's one that looks like it's struggling. We have lost one this year. This one was lost last year because I accidentally weeded it. But the others, there's one someplace around here. I have lost track of it, but we have lost one more. But there's 30 of them, so I'm not too worried about it. And then at the end, our high bush cranberry did not get eaten by deer this year, so I'm happy. And then finally there is our 2 surviving sea buckthorn. One over there and one over there. I'm not sure what to make of these purple raspberries, because all 3 of them produced fruit this year, which I did not expect, because I was thinking that they were first-year canes, not second-year canes. This one is clearly still alive. And these ones died back, and it looks like they're actually dead, as opposed to died back for the season. There are no new canes that came up, so I'm not sure. I'll have to look them up and see more about the variety. Find out whether or not this is normal. Here we have our single Crespo squash that has survived, and since then one more has started to grow. We'll see if this one makes it. Still blooming like crazy, all male flowers. Obviously this patch did not do well, and I did a bit of research, and it looks like it's simply that this spot gets too much sun. In the summertime, this spot gets 0 shade. So it could be that they basically got sunburned. So these are our green and yellow beans. And I keep telling myself I'm going to pull them because they're well past their productive stage, but I keep finding more flowers. So I get a handful every now and then. There's quite a lot of slug damage though. I'm amazed by how many slugs get into this high raised bed, because this is almost waist high. And these onions over here, there's just a few left, are getting so huge. compared to the ones that I had to pick early because their stems got broken, so they weren't going to get any bigger. But we got some big ones. There's a big one over there. And yeah, so I picked them quite small, but these ones are getting huge. They like this high raised bed. This is the bed that our Roma tomatoes were in. They ended up having to all get pulled because they basically, I think tomato blight is what they got, and just everything got pulled. And the onions that were around them had already been pulled because the cats were lying on them and broke the stems. So this bed is ready for prepping for next year, and we will not be growing onions in here next year. I'm really happy with how this kiddie pool and trellis setup has worked out for the melons. They're just doing so well. Some of them need hammocks to hold the weight. And I mean, there's 3 varieties in here, but the vines are so mixed up, I'm not going to be able to tell which is which until we actually pick them. There's another one in a hammock there. And here's more large ones under there. And check them out. And they're still blooming and everything. It's great. If the frost holds off, we're going to have a really good crop out of this. There are still a few onions around this bed that I didn't harvest because they didn't have their stems broken yet. The Uzbek golden carrots I'm also leaving as long as possible in the ground. The Black Beauty tomatoes, we're finally harvesting them. And being able to tell whether they're ripe or not, they get red on the bottom. This is not ripe. And they get kind of squishy. Oh, there's a ripe one on the other side I can show. But these buggers are huge. As far as flavor, they're not as good as they were made out to be when I read the description. So there's that one's getting ripe. And see that redness of there. So I could probably pick these, but I'll leave them a little longer. But I'm glad we tried them. Probably won't grow them again, but it was worth the try. On this side, once again, I pulled most of the onions out. These gold ball turnips, something really loves those leaves. They're not doing as well as I thought, and turns out we just really don't like turnips all that much, at least not this variety. So we'll figure that out. The beets are just not happening. There's a surviving onion and a volunteer sunflower. And these tomatoes are the indigo blue chocolate. And like the Black Beauties, you can tell they're ripe by how red they get on the bottom. As far as flavor goes, I'm told that these ones are much more delicious and that these ones are worth growing again. So that is something we will be doing. This bed here is where the garlic had been. This section is where we planted fall spinach, which, as you can see, did not work. There's a single spinach that's kind of, well, maybe 3 of them on there. The slugs just decimated them. And the beets, not doing any better. The radishes are okay. I picked a bunch of them and they were split, which I've never seen before. But the one person in the family who likes radishes is house sitting right now, so nobody really wants to eat them. In these bags, the onions are getting nice and big, and the hot peppers have lots of peppers forming, and these will get bright red when they are ready. And these purple Peruvian fingerling potatoes are just starting to die back now. I'm really amazed by how long they've been growing. Check the color out on these peppers. These are the dragonfly peppers. So very dark. So that's these 2 bags. This one bag has 1 variety of peppers, and this one has 3 surviving varieties of peppers. Got some pretty big ones in there. When they're ripe, they're going to be yellow and an orange, pale orange color. This bed has the purple corn, which I've left to dry, the cobs to dry on the stalks. And I planted some red swan beans in between for the nitrogen, and we're actually getting beans. I've been collecting beans and we've been eating them, which I didn't really expect for considering how late I planted them. But, oh look. So that's what they look like. This one didn't get very well pollinated. I don't know why it's open like that, but hopefully they'll get a chance to completely dry out on the stalks before the raccoons eat them all. So the squash bed is a big win and lose situation. The Magda squash never made it. My one yellow patty pan squash that made it and is actually producing, so we've been getting just a few squash every now and then to eat. The real success story for the summer squash has been the G-Star green patty pans, and they're still blooming, still producing. We've gotten some really nice big ones out of these. So there's 2 plants on here and 2 plants on here. The yellow zucchini managed to recover, and a second one actually is just surviving, and so we are getting some yellow zucchini to harvest. The green zucchini is struggling more, but we are getting some. We have had a few zucchini we could harvest every now and then. So that's how it is with the summer squash. The winter squash, on the other hand, has been doing fabulous. I weed whacked in here last night, but these are the pink bananas, and step over this. This one here is starting to turn color, and it's just so gorgeous. I hope we like them, because we're going to have a lot of them. So, just try and step around these. And another big one over here. Look at that. And then in this next row, if I can get through, we have the North Georgia Candy Roaster. Got a couple of nice big ones over here. And these big ones have been doing all right, but every now and then, like, they're still blooming, still producing male and female flowers. But for the really small ones, what ends up happening is the slugs seem to be getting at them. So they don't seem to be bothering these big ones, but the little ones have tender enough skins that the slugs kill them off. But we've got enough big ones that it's not too much of a concern. This bed was supposed to be drum gourds and zucca melon, and it looks like we had only zucca melon. And again, they're still blooming, they're still producing, but every single melon that has started to form has ended up like these ones. So the ends just rot away. And so we're not going to have anything to harvest because they just don't survive long enough. Here we have some Boston marrow. This one has been developing throughout the summer. This other plant had one, it died, dried up, shriveled away, and now it has 3 of them. So it should be interesting to see how those are. And then we have the Honeyboat delicata, which suddenly started blooming, and so this one plant has, actually no, this is 2 plants, 2 on one on the other. We've got 2 winter sweet. There's one that's been developing for a while, and then one new one finally showed up. This is a Honeyboat delicata that's farther along. And here we have a single hulless seed pumpkin. And on this side, we've got one almost ripe red curry or little gem, and then another one started to develop. So we've usually done really well with the red curry, but this is the first time we grew it without a trellis, and it seems to prefer that over just lying on the ground. So I'm pretty excited about what's happening right here. There's a new little bed over here. A trench was dug and planted 20 saffron crocuses that are acclimated for Canadian climate. They're actually zone 4. We're zone 3. So with a bit of extra protection, like with this zone 4 apple tree that we've got, we should keep them alive in this nice and sheltered spot for the winter. And along with the crocuses over here, this is all fenced off because the deer were eating the tulips that my daughters planted in here. We ran out of space to lay out tomatoes indoors, so I took the greenest ones and laid them out here. A lot of them aren't green anymore. They're doing very well, but we need to bring these indoors as soon as we process more tomatoes and have the space for them. So now we're at the old kitchen garden. The rhubarb is mostly died back here. These spoon tomatoes, there's lots that are ready to pick right now. Got the mint over here. The red potatoes that were in here and over there are all harvested. Still need to pull out little onions that are here. They didn't do very well because the cats kept rolling on them. Got more mint and a beautiful little black cat. And then we got lots of chives. This one got planted later because there's actually 2 of them in here. One broke in the wind, and that's the taller one that's recovering. And another one was a little seedling that germinated later, and it's doing really well. So we're going to have ripe little spoon tomatoes out of there soon. And the walking onions, they did all right. We're not actually doing with them anything with them, so they don't actually taste very good. The dill is self-seeded. And now that, I'm just going to step over here, these poppies are dry, I'm going to harvest the seed heads, and then I'll be able to pull this cover off and harvest the shallots that are in here. So this year, we planted the loofah in this bed over here, and there's one loofah over there. It's a bit damaged on the outside from rubbing against the lilac branch and high winds. And there's another big one up here. There were some other little ones developing, but they just dried up, so we have 2 loofah developing, which I'm so excited about because this is the farthest we've ever gotten with loofah. Now over here, we planted 1 each of the 4 different kinds of early peppers. 1 died. So we got, there's a hot pepper. I don't know. I guess it was the dragonfly that died because these ones are not looking purple. These are the strawberries that were planted for seed, and amazingly, not only are they quite big now, I've seen flowers. Very late, but we have flowers. There's the chamomile. And look at that, we have developing eggplant. These peppers are the sweet chocolates. They're getting quite tall. These are the ones that I started earlier indoors, and we've been regularly harvesting the peppers off of this one and making use of them. And then here we have some of the German winter thyme. And look at that, it's a blooming strawberry. And some more thyme over here. So under this rose bush is that squash plant that I found in the wattle weave bed that planted itself from somewhere. It actually started blooming, but it's not going to produce anything. But it was an interesting experiment to see if it would survive. So in that bed by the chain link fence that is going to be completely redone to be narrower, I found these volunteer tomatoes. And I figured, what the heck? I transplanted them. They're all in here now, where the Irish cobbler potatoes had been planted. Underneath this mulch, I've got a soaker hose buried. And they seem to have handled being transplanted quite well. The rings are not only to protect them from any potential cold temperatures, the stakes are to hold the rings down. It's to keep the cats from rolling all over them. The grapes had been doing so well. I had so many clusters of grapes all over the place. And then one morning I came out and found this knocked down to the ground, and every single grape has been eaten. My guess, raccoons. So this last bed is where we grew the Hungarian blue poppies. The seed heads are now all completely dry. Some of them are really, really tiny. I'll try and focus on this one. So what I'll do is I will be pulling the dried pods, the whole plants, and then I'm going to just rework this entire bed because it's so full of weeds. I'll actually sift the soil and see what I can do, and then I will plant poppies back in it again. So yeah, that's our 2023 garden, which is amazingly still going on. Hopefully the weather will hold off because some things are quite behind. The so-called early peppers being one of them. So next year I know to start those earlier indoors. But it's been a mix of successes and failures. In here I'd say the potatoes were a success. They did quite well in here, both the Irish cobbler and the red thumb. But yeah, we definitely learned a lot on things this year, and it'll help us when we make our decisions for next year.